Hey there. So, I've got a topic today that's near and dear to my heart, and I want to talk about college or university or whatever you call it. They're called different things in the rest of the world. In America, it's commonly referred to as college. What is college? Well, college used to be a place that held specific information that you could only get in college. College used to be a place where you had people that excelled at the topics they were teaching you things that you couldn't learn anywhere else. It ain't like that anymore. What college has become since the 1960s is an indoctrination center run by radicals, radical leftists specifically. I don't even know if there are any colleges that aren't religious based that aren't run by radicals. It's basically all of them. I mean, all the way up to the Ivy League. Heck, especially the Ivy League. You know, just getting into college, they now have these whole checklists of things that you have to pass through to be considered. Even though the majority of college students are female in almost every single college, being male is still going to hurt you, especially if you're a white male. Brah. But, so what? Don't go. Don't go, kids. You know, if I was being asked to speak to teenagers about their future, and nobody would ask me to do that, I promise you. That's one of the biggest jokes I tell. But I would tell them, don't go to college. It's a boondoggle. Oh, you don't know what a boondoggle is? Look it up. It'll be right next to the definition of college. By boondoggle, I mean it's a ripoff. Financially, it's a ripoff. And intellectually, it's a ripoff. You know, we live in an age where the internet is out there and all the information that you would ever want is there. The only reasons to go to college at all now would be if you wanted to join one of the guilds that require accreditation, that require a specific piece of paper to participate. What do I mean by that? You know, doctors, lawyers, nursing, teaching, I think. Do they accredit teachers? I don't know how. I'm sure they do in some way. Or if you wanted to go and be a professor yourself. You know, of course, continue that cycle. Professors make professors who then compete with professors. That doesn't make any sense. See, my personal history with college was my parents, they didn't have the money to pay for me to go to college, so I had to pay for it myself. My grades in high school were okay. Not really good enough to get more than just a little bit of a grant. But I didn't, and I got one scholarship on accident, and that was totally racist. They only gave it to me because I'm half Hispanic. And I didn't argue with them about it. I mean, I was like, they wanted to give me some money, I took the money. And I went to two different, 4-year universities. And in between, I went to a community college. And I tell you what, I learned way, way, way more at that community college than I learned at either university. I mean, I did learn lessons. It wasn't the lessons that they intended for me to learn. It was more lessons in life, not, whatever the classes were. So I'll go through a brief history of what I did in college. So first college I went to was a state college, and I went there for 1 year. And I was going for fine arts. And yeah, I already knew going there that a degree in fine arts was pretty useless. It's not going to get you a job you couldn't get. You know, in the art world, it's all about what you can do and what you know. And that shows through in your portfolio, not in a degree. I'm sure there's a couple of specialized schools that would look good. But this was just an ordinary state school with a pretty average art department. And once I started going there, I realized how below average this art department was. In fact, I didn't really learn much of anything from most of my teachers there that I didn't already know in high school. Except I did have one teacher who was absolutely fantastic. He taught me so much. It was a life drawing class. And this guy, he had unique techniques, techniques I had never seen anywhere before or since. He had a great sense. He was a very calming person and very uplifting in his comments. He was very critical, but his critique was always constructive. He was always making real comments, not just talking to talk, not just running his mouth. And he was just an adjunct. He wasn't even a full professor. But he was the best professor I had out of about 8 different art professors during that 1 year. And he really inspired me to do better. Of all the teachers there, the rest of the teachers were basically just a waste of my time, a waste of my money, a waste of my energy. Then while I was there during that year, I decided I didn't really want to do fine arts. I wanted to do filmmaking. So I tried to get into the state art school, which is known for filmmaking, and I didn't try very hard because I was told that it was very cutthroat, that each year at that school they cut down the number of people that went, and it got very backstabbing to where, people weren't working together, they were working against each other because they wanted to be the ones that get to the top, like a game show almost. But I did discover during the summer, between those 2 years, I was planning on going back to the school I started at, but then a friend of mine, it was a new friend that I had met that summer, he told me about this community college in this tiny little town where had built like some movie studios, and the local community college, the other 2 biggest majors that they had in this community college were criminal justice, because there was a prison in the county, and taxidermy. I'm not kidding. So to criminal justice and taxidermy, they added film and video production. And now this is back in the late 1990s, so we did actually handle film, real film, celluloid, a little bit. Enough to do some animation and enough to do some experimental stuff, but I didn't do any actual films. My roommate did do an actual film on film, which was very expensive. The camera I'm using here right now shoots better and cheaper on digital than that film ever was. I can add film effects now that, most people can't tell the difference. So, the need for film is kind of gone away with all the high definition shit. And so anyway, I went there for 2 years, and I learned a lot. Like, I remember day one at that school, they put a camera in our hands and they were like, go shoot something. Yeah, you don't know what you're doing. That's fine. We understand that. Go shoot something. And then we brought back what we did, and the teachers critiqued it constructively. And now all the teachers at this school were actually working. They were working in the business. They worked on movies. They worked on commercials. They worked on television, and they taught us what they knew. And it was considered below the line. And if you know anything about film and video production, the line is the difference between creative and technical. So we were below the line, which meant we were all technical. Above the line would have been the state art school, which would have been directors and cinematographers, writers, actors. Those are all creative positions. We were positions like grips and lighting assistants and assistant directors, location scouts, all that stuff. However, even though that was officially what we were doing, we also, we didn't have any above the line people with us, so we had to kind of fill those gaps. So even though we weren't really being taught that kind of stuff, we were able to learn that stuff anyway, just out of necessity, just to complete projects. And so while I was there, I decided that I didn't really want to make movies because I didn't like actors or dancers. That's a whole nother story. But we did wind up working with the state art school people. And I actually did meet a famous comedian there who was there at the same time. I'm not going to mention him now, but he was a fun guy even back then. But anyway, I realized he was the only reason I mentioned him is he was the only actor that didn't piss me off. I learned really fast I did not want to be a movie director. I got more interested in camera stuff and editing, and I wanted to do the more technical stuff, the behind-the-scenes stuff. But anyway, I only mentioned that because then I went to a third college, which was another state school, and I wanted to get into audio recording. I mean, I still wanted to do video, but I more wanted to do audio for video. While I was there, I met up with some rock and roll band, not some bands, a single rock and roll band, and I decided I really wanted to focus more on music. So after a year and a half there, I dropped out. So yeah, I went to 3 colleges for a total of 4.5 years, and if I had gone back for my 5th year, I would have still been a sophomore. Because college, and I wasn't really there to get a degree. I was there to learn, and that's the irony. This is what I'm coming at full circle here. I went to college to learn, and I went and I signed up for the classes that I wanted, and I took a couple classes that I had to because they forced me to, even though I was paying for it. And then, they take attendance, even though you're paying for it. If I can pass a class that I'm paying for and I don't have to actually show up to pass the class, then why are you treating me like a child? I thought the whole point of college was to be treated like an adult. And that's another thing. They're going to treat you like babies. Colleges these days. So now that's my experience at college. I left because I was making way more money in my dorm room than I would have with any regular job. I had figured out how to do circuit bending and modifying synthesizers and stuff. I went way down the rabbit hole of audio. I was managing this band. I wound up managing other bands. I never made any money at that, but I made tons of money at the circuit bending for years. So I left school, and I never looked back. I never even thought about going back to college. Because at that point, it had become a boondoggle. It had become expensive. My last semester there in my film class, there was a teacher there who was tenured, and he was the worst, absolutely the worst professor I ever had. He didn't teach us anything. I remember him having a lecture that was basically word for word out of a magazine. It was an industry magazine at the time that I read, and I was sitting in class one day, and he's giving this lecture, and I realized I actually had the magazine with me. It was so weird. I pull the magazine out, and I'm following along with his lecture, and he's acting like this is all coming out of his head. I felt like bringing it up to him, but he already hated me at that point. He would give assignments with specific criteria. I would follow that criteria, and then he would grade me on different criteria. At the same time, his lab assistant would get A's on everything, and the dude would just hand in absolute shit that he had obviously done like that morning. Like no time, no energy, no. Basically, it was just checking a few boxes, but the obvious effort that he put into it was just none, bare minimum. So that guy was bullshit, and it basically taught me at that point that all college is bullshit. This isn't the freaking early 2000s, 2000, 2001. It is so much more bullshit now, kids. Look, if you are looking to go to college, don't. Please don't. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, and you can only do it with college, then fine. I'm telling you, you're probably not going to like it, but you're going to have to do it. If you don't know what you want to do with your life, college is the worst place to learn it now. Because all they're going to do, they're going to see you coming. And they're going to take you and they're going to try to push you towards these gender studies, towards these useless degrees that help line their pockets, because all they really do is hand out a bunch of woke books and judge you on them, on your ability to assimilate them. You can read books on your own. If you're into reading, go read. Read like crazy. And you don't even have to buy books. They have this thing called a library. And if you go to a library and they don't have the book you want, you can get them, they can get it for you. Kids these days, they don't even know that these libraries exist. But if you really insist on paper books, which is really the only difference between the internet and college, then just go do that. Or just read it online. Or, if you really want to get into an actual trade, go do it. Go try to get an internship. Not all internships go through colleges. You can do it on your own. You want to learn how to weld. You want to learn how to do you want to go fix boats or cars or whatever. You want to paint. You want to be an artist. Just go do it. You don't need a professor, someone who was a loser, someone who couldn't cut it in the real world. You don't need them to judge you. You probably already know more than them anyway, as far as, the reality of nature. They've been stuck in this bubble for so long that they actually think all this identity politics that they spew, they actually think that that's reality. That, they're filling your head with delusion. They're filling your head with nonsense. And the whole point of all of it is to push forth this collectivism, this communism. And, you're going to hear me railing against this stuff all the time. But that's all you're going to learn in college these days, is how to be a shitty person who sways towards communism. You want to learn that? You can do that on your own too. Just watch a bunch of SJW videos on YouTube if you insist on being a shithead. That's fine. But look, don't waste your money. And see, that's all considering if college was free. It's a giant waste of time. But on top of that, it is a gosh dang, it is such a huge waste of money. You will be paying those loans back for 20, 30 years. You're better off buying a freaking house. Do that. Work on your credit. Work on a trade. Learn how to be your own boss. That's a lesson that I'll talk about later. But, when you work, you're generating wealth. And if someone is giving you a job, the wealth you're generating is often 5, 10, 20 times what you're actually being paid. Yeah. That's a tough lesson. I actually was working on running my own business for a couple of years before I even realized that. So look, it's not for everybody. Running your own business isn't for everybody. When you start your own business, you're basically doing everything. So you have to know everything. And if you really, really, really want to learn and you want to be in a college atmosphere, go to a community college. They're super cheap. And a lot of community colleges, they don't have the time or energy to stick all these identity things in your head. They're too busy teaching. Plus, they teach a lot of grown-ups, too. And the grown-ups don't want to hear that shit at all. So they usually just leave it out. Now, I'm not an expert on it, but I do know that it's way, 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 way cheaper than going to a university, going to a state college. My gosh, I'm talking about just a state school that's subsidized. You go to a private college, and whew, it ain't worth it, kids. It ain't worth it. Please don't go to college. Learn on your own. If you think you're smart enough to cut it in college, you're probably smart enough to cut it on your own. I encourage you. Ask me some questions. Please comment, like, subscribe, whatever. Tell me how full of shit I am, how I'm destroying the next generation. If you have any questions to me, anything specific you want to say, any you want to throw some middle fingers at me, like I said, I think there's a middle finger emoji. Comes in all kinds of different colors. You can send it to me, and I'll respond. All right. If you're in college right now and you're in the middle of it and you feel like you're stuck, quit. Drop out. If your parents are willing to throw a ton of money at you and you're not having to worry about the debt, just have them cut you a check and start a business. Even if you fail at a business, you're going to learn a lot more than you're going to learn in college. All right, so I've ranted about this enough now. Good luck, y'all. Love you. Mean it.